Today's episode of the BS Podcast is brought to you by Guess Who? Oh yeah, it's SeatGeek. That's our presenting sponsor since 1978. You have basketball, college basketball, hockey, music, wrestling, concerts, opera. They're all in full swing. SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to your favorite team's games. Buy and sell tickets in just 2 taps on your phone. Have SeatGeek help you find the best seats at the best prices, fully guaranteed. Don't forget, fully guaranteed. And if you're looking for concert tickets, even better. I've had SeatGeek on my phone for 2 years. It's by far the easiest way I've found to shop for tickets, thanks to their revolutionary grading system. Just try it out. Download the SeatGeek app today or go to SeatGeek.com. We are also brought to you by the Ringer Podcast Network, which has a bunch of stuff going on right now. First of all, I went on Channel 33 with Joe House, who's been on this podcast more than anyone else since we relaunched the podcast. This is the BS Podcast. And we broke down the Ringer's really indefensible top 50 fast food rankings that I feel like I should have thrown my body in front of. House was very upset. Waffle fries were number 1 from Chick-fil-A. And we decided to do a podcast. And House is really the Mel Kiper Jr. of fast food. He's the Chad Ford. He's the Barry Melrose. Name the top analyst. That's House. We broke it down. You can listen to that podcast on Channel 33. I would say it's House at his best. And people on Twitter were saying House should become the next food czar. I think I agree with them. Check that out on Channel 33. And also, the Ringer NFL show. We have Mike Lombardi, Kevin Clark, Robert Mays, and Danny Kelly are all in Indianapolis at the Combine. We were doing Ringer NFL shows from there. And we launched Tate. Did we launch the Masked Man podcast?
It's launched.
Oh, it's launched. The Masked Man has his own podcast, a wrestling podcast. Oh, yeah. It's got its own feed. You used to be able to find it on Channel 33, and now it is on its own feed. Subscribe now. iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Overcast FM. What other places have podcasts? Google Play. Yeah. Masked Man Podcast, hosted by David Shoemaker. Lots of wrestling people on. I'm going to be going over there on that before WrestleMania to break down WrestleMania. But check it out. That's our newest and latest podcast feed, the Masked Man Podcast. David Shoemaker. It was time. It was time for him to branch off, leave his friends at Channel 33 behind. And don't forget about Tate and Mark Titus. Teed Up, college basketball podcast that if you want to win your March Madness pool, I would start listening to that podcast right now. Anyway, Jimmy Kimmel and Cousin Sal coming up. We taped this on a Wednesday night. We went to their office because Jimmy is, he's a celebrity. He just hosted the Oscars, for God's sakes. We had to go to him, even though he's 2 miles away. And that is coming up right now. But first, our friends from Pearl Jam. All right, taping this on a Wednesday night in Jimmy Kimmel's office. Cousin Sal and Jimmy Kimmel are here. You just did a show with Alec Baldwin and a bunch of people, and you had a very tumultuous weekend, both of you.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was tumultuous, but it
more
was...
Jimmy than me.
I would say it was tumultuous. It was the biggest, most famous thing that ever happened in the Oscars.
Yeah, it is funny because somebody said to me yesterday, you better get your story exactly straight because you're going to be telling this story for the rest of your life. And I thought, I don't want to tell this story for the rest of my life. It's about the wrong envelope being handed over. It's essentially a boring story, but the impact was
It's never going to go away.
Yeah, I know. I guess it's not. Oh, yeah, I'm just going to say it wasn't me.
I was saying to somebody, it was like the JFK assassination, and you were kind of the Jackie O. You were crawling on the back of the limo, wondering what happened.
But I was, in a way. I haven't done really any interviews.
I know.
Since the Oscars, and so there are many things that people don't know about what happened that night. Like afterwards, somehow I wound up in the huddle trying to figure out what is going
What do you mean?
on. Well, they're the producers, Mike DeLuca and Jennifer Todd are the producers of the show. And then there's Dawn and Cheryl who run the Academy. And they were trying to figure out what happened. And for some reason, I became a part of that. with Warren Beatty.
Like you're a decision maker.
And I really was in the middle of this, and everybody was very keyed up trying to figure out, what happened and who did what and whatever. And I just kept screwing around through the whole thing. I told Warren Beatty he was in trouble. I told Warren Beatty, I said, there's only one way to handle this. You need to come on my show tomorrow night, and we'll explain what happened. He said, well, that sounds great for you, but I think I'm just going to wait a while. And I said, I'm going to tell you right now that I think that's a mistake. Forget me. I'm not speaking for myself here. It would be great if you were on the show, but I'm saying I think you need to handle this immediately, and a great place to do it would be on my show because I am actually an eyewitness to what happened. And he didn't think that was a great idea, but he did a very smart thing, and I was really impressed by this. He kept those envelopes. He would not hand them to anybody. He showed them to people, but he would not hand them over.
The two envelopes.
He kept both of them because that's the evidence. That's the smoking gun there. As soon as you give those envelopes up, who knows who switches what out and who knows what happened.
The other smart thing was that he went to the microphone. He went to clear things up. I just want you guys to know. And it was like at that point,
I guess, but everyone now blames him because he did that, and he didn't even read it. Although he did, throw her under the bus and let her read it.
Well,
she was in an Uber back to Malibu, and he's explaining he didn't even say it.
He's not the one who said it.
Right.
It is funny too because one of our writers saw somebody posted on Instagram or something a close up. They zoomed in on the envelope that was in his hand. They got it off the television broadcast, and I went into after all this commotion. It was still going on. I left. We had a little toast after the show. I went back in and I said, Warren, you could see on the envelope, you can see right here, the envelope that you were handed said outstanding female, actress. And I said, and I just announced him. I said, you're free to walk the streets of Hollywood again. And I walked out of the room. Everybody laughed, and that was kind of the end of it.
The whole thing is so, we were talking about before.
Well, why it took so long is the...
Well, the guy must have had two envelopes left, right? The accountant?
They have one set of envelopes on one side of the stage and another set of envelopes on the other side of the stage.
So each time somebody wins an award, he's probably putting the duplicate, or either they took it away, he's putting in some suitcase.
Yeah.
And gradually he just had the two left, but he's walking around, he's tweeting, he's taking photos. And then they're like, hey, we need that best. And he just gives it, and he just gives the right. It's kind of amazing.
I just can't
What are the
believe.
odds?
So it takes a minute to get on stage. They go through 2.5 speeches. And then, it was like 2.5 minutes. Like, these are not people you want watching your 6-year-old around the pool, right? Like, get in there before anyone gets on stage.
Immediately they're running in going, whoa, whoa, whoa,
I think at that point, people were hoping it somehow went away.
Yeah.
What they could have done? They could have just went with it. They could have.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what I would have done in that situation, but the thought would definitely cross my mind of just letting La La Land have the best picture. And everybody kind of look at it, because it was the favorite. It's not like it would have been a huge surprise. Nobody would have been like, what the hell happened? How did it's not like it was Arrival or something or Hell or High Water.
I think that's another reason she read the name. She's like, well, this doesn't look right because there's an actress's name here, but everyone has been telling me all day that La La Land should win, so I'll just read the name. La La.
Emma Stone, she gave an interview thing right after when they're in that room.
Right.
And she's like, you could tell she thought there was some sort of conspiracy, and she's like, I just want you to know I had my envelope the whole time.
Right.
I don't think
there was this 20 minutes where nobody knew how it was going to play out.
Yeah, I don't know that she thought there was a conspiracy. I think she thought that Warren had made a mistake. Instead, she didn't realize there were two versions of that envelope and that card.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was
old
really
people
crazy.
can't see is really one of the morals to this. Like I said,
well, not only that, they came to 2 different rehearsals because it was hard to see the teleprompter.
Yeah.
So that definitely was part of the issue, I think, is just vision in general. But I can't read the menu in a restaurant.
I know. Where we have our iPhone lights as we're at any restaurant. That's.
They're expected to be able to read this with a spotlight kind of shining in your face. But
I told Jimmy the only thing that would have made it better is if Jimmy announced release the Raisinets all over these bozos, just as they were trying to figure
I wish
it
we
all
had
out.
one more load of candy and Sal was in charge. That would have been the greatest first
Well, wait a
moment
second.
ever.
Let's go back to when it happens.
Yeah.
You're in the row with Damon.
So I'm sitting in
What
the
was the
audience.
plan for the last joke that we never saw?
The plan for the last joke was the Best Picture winner is announced. They make a speech. I was assuming the Best Picture was not going to be Manchester by the Sea.
Right.
And I said to Matt, if it's not Manchester by the Sea, I'm going to be sitting next to you. This would be my revenge for the Emmys, because at the Emmys, he walked on stage after we lost our category, and I'd be sitting next to him, and it would start on me, and I'd start wrapping the show up, and then the camera would widen. We'd see that Matt was sitting next to me, and I would say, wow, unbelievable, Casey won, and Kenneth won, and it's really only one person who didn't win tonight, and it's you for this movie. And it would have been just a nice little button to the whole night, but we're waiting for the camera to come to us, and we're kind of, we're concentrating and set. And suddenly the stage manager wanders up on stage, which is never supposed to happen. And he's in the shot, which I know is not supposed to happen. So I really don't know what's going on. And I don't hear very well. So Matt hears somebody say something to the effect of, they had the wrong movie for Best Picture. And so he says to me, I think they announced the wrong Best Picture. And I said, what? He said, yeah, I heard them saying that it's the wrong movie. And I looked at Matt and I said, well, I guess I better go up there. And he said, yeah, I guess you better. And I walked up on stage and all hell is breaking loose and people are mad and confused. And I start, I'm trying, I feel bad for them, but I can't help but laugh because it's such an uncomfortable situation. Yeah. And then, the microphone actually goes down to the ground. It's the microphone that comes up from the stage and then goes down. So I bent over, I leaned forward to talk to the microphone and it disappeared, which is almost a comedy moment on its own. And then it came back up. And I didn't know if my mic was on, my lavalier mic that I have attached to my shirt. I didn't know if people could hear me. People were very confused. It wasn't a great moment for a joke because people wanted to know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on, and so. But
your default mechanism in that exact situation is to make a joke.
Is to make it worse.
Yeah, you're uncomfortable, so you're gonna immediately go to humor.
Yes, right. And so,
I would have expected nothing less.
And then I think I yelled at Warren. He said, Warren Beatty said, I'm not trying to be funny. I said, well, you were. No one laughed. And I think I screamed at him, Warren, what did you do?
Yeah, you did.
I assumed that he read the wrong. I thought it was his mistake because I had this backstory in my head of him coming to 2 rehearsals and not being able to see the teleprompter. So I thought, this is what happened between the two of them. They couldn't read the card. Although now thinking back, that's a ridiculous. Yeah. You see the words La La Land don't look anything like the words Moonlight, So,
yeah.
So then I got up there. And I said something, I don't even remember what I said, and I wandered off stage with everybody at the end of the show, and then people started going like, did you do this? And I was like,
they're blaming you.
Hold on a minute. I'm just going to make one thing very, very clear right now, that this was not if this was a prank, I'm not in on it. I'm one of the victims here, so.
Although, if Sal had wandered out with a big smile on his face, it would have been the greatest thing both of you have ever
done.
Anyone could have wandered up on that stage at that point and taken the microphone. Literally, any person in that house could have walked up and said anything they wanted to.
Well, when I was watching it, because...
Remember that for next year, guys.
They did a wide shot. I wasn't really totally paying attention, and we were talking about whether we're going to watch Big Little Liar or whatever, that new HBO show. And I was like, we got to keep it on because Jimmy might come back on one more time. And then they did this weird wide shot and there were people on the stage. And I thought like a streaker ran on or somebody came in to pretend they were the producer, like it was an imposter.
Yeah.
But other people immediately knew that it was the wrong movie. And I don't know how you would have known that.
I saw a picture today of Ryan Gosling somebody took a picture of him on stage. He was laughing his ass off.
Well, so the Moonlight people come up. Could you hear the conversations?
Yeah, and nobody wanted to make a speech, because, it was so unclear what was happening. They kind of absorbed the fact that they'd won, but nobody took the next step of saying like, oh, I guess now we have to make a speech now that we won, until Denzel Washington literally was waving at me and You know, he's yelling.
That part's incredible.
Yelling Barry at me. He's going Barry, and he's pointing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but the director, Barry of Moonlight, is behind me, and he wanted me to get him. I think Denzel just wanted to go home, really, is what it was, and he knew he couldn't leave.
Wrap it up.
So I went. I grabbed Barry, and I kind of pushed him toward the mic. I think I don't really remember exactly what happened. I do remember Denzel kind of. It may have been another 6 minutes long if Denzel hadn't directed me to go get Barry and bring him to the microphone.
And are they telling you rap?
Nobody's no. There's no. I mean, there's nobody to tell me rap. I don't have an earpiece on.
It's almost like a natural disaster has just happened.
Yeah,
Like there's been an earthquake and people are trying to figure out what to do.
It's not scary. It's just confusing
and uncomfortable when you watch it again. I watch it again and again and again today. It's like, this is really uncomfortable. Even for me, this is weird.
Yeah, it was.
And it
very
all made
uncomfortable.
sense because when I after it was over and they went off, then we rewound it to be like, all right, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
And you can see Beatty, like he's looking, he's confused. He opens the envelope to see if there's another card.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he just punts. I compared it to everyone blamed him, but he's really like it's the Justin Timberlake, Janet Jackson scenario where Faye Dunaway is the one that pulled the boob, but he got blamed for the envelope. But she was the one that read it.
Yeah.
He was the one who was like, I don't know what to do. This doesn't seem right. And then Faye Dunaway, La La Land, and just she goes. But I think it's the most famous Oscar moment of all time.
It might be.
It's the most famous television show we have, and you're in it forever.
Yeah. Is that
That
good?
part-
Is
I
that a
think it's
thing?
good.
Oh, it is
Yeah,
good.
it's good.
Oh, okay.
I think it'll be in the first paragraph of your obituary 50 years from now. I really do.
Oh, I hope that's
you
not
go.
true.
No, I
really
think
that
it
would be
is.
terrible if it was.
No, it'll be like
No.
Jimmy hosted a show and did all these things and also hosted the fateful Oscars with the Moonlight. I really think it's going to be
The
that
first
big.
paragraph just asking my obituary be that I went 4 to 5 with my only loser on Oscar parlay being La La
Lost.
Land.
That is the best part of the whole thing.
Can we quickly go over my bad beats of the year?
what-
Explain though what happened.
They're worse than
fully
bad.
Explain it. So you had 4. You hit 4 out of 4. Your last pick was La La Land.
Let me go back even further if I can.
Yeah.
Golden State 73 win team up 3-1 against Cleveland. Simmons, you were in on me with that one. Hillary Clinton 10-1 favorite morning of the election. I lose that one.
And we
Freaking
also had
Atlanta
multiple
Falcons
chances
up
to go
25
against
points,
it. Yeah, Falcons.
plus 3.5. Even if they screw everything up, it goes to overtime. Everyone loses by 3. I'm plus 3.5. I lose that one. And then 4 to 5. I have Emma Stone. I have freaking Zootopia. I have I don't even know what else. I had Affleck. I forgot what the fourth one. And the fifth
Mahershala
one, Mahershala Ali.
Wow, you had Affleck too.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
it would have been a nice payday. And then I have La La Land, and I see all this commotion. And Jimmy, I don't know if you know this, but there's live betting. You could bet like during an event or a game. What were the live odds on La La Land after they announced La La Land won?
Well,
do you
they
mean?
look- they
How do you
wouldn't
know
even
this?
take 'em.
I know.
Yeah.
That's why it's the worst loss ever.
Well, it's certainly in sports, we've never seen
No.
an actual result
It's
reversed
insane.
within 3 minutes where you celebrated it. And then it
Yeah, I'm
flipped the
trying
other
to
way.
think. Have we? I mean, almost at the Super Bowl in a way. You know.
It's
Yeah.
I guess it would be the equivalent of like the tuck rule.
Where
If you bet the
everyone
Raiders
in
and the tuck rule
stadium,
and the game's
everyone watching.
over, and then all of a sudden they
Yeah.
flip it. But
Now, hate to inject gambling into it, but this is a real thing I saw. Was it Price Waterhouse? Is that what it is?
Price Waterhouse Cooper.
Yeah, minus 260 to keep the job next year.
Oh, the
If
firm
they're
itself.
favored, yes.
You
they're
can
favored.
bet on that.
You can bet on it.
I'm going to
wow,
say there's
I'm
going to be a
sure.
new firm next year.
Oh, you think
would be
so?
my gut.
Because
my
they already
gut
announced that
reaction.
the guy isn't coming back.
Yeah, I would think that. Yeah, they fired they didn't fire them actually. They just took
Keep
them
them
off
off
the
the-
account.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
I think they come back.
Yeah.
We'll be back to Jimmy and Sal in 1 second, but first I want to talk about our friends at Lyft. Lyft Lyft. Download the Lyft app and get a ride in minutes for less than the cost of a cab. Every Lyft driver is fully vetted through their 10-point safety standard. They are rated after every ride. Only the best stick around. And with Lyft, you can tip in the app, which obviously leads to happier and better drivers. 9 out of 10 Lyft rides get a perfect 5-star rating from the passenger. It's also the highest rated ride-sharing app, and it's your buddy whenever you need a ride. People are actually getting rid of their cars and relying on Lyft to get around. That's what I heard. I've heard this. In fact, my nephew my nephew Kyle, who has a car. What does Kyle call his car, Zoe?
Betty.
Kyle calls his car Betty.
She's old and broken down.
And she's old and broken down. And needless to say, she broke down. And Kyle doesn't have a car, and he uses Lyft to go everywhere. So congratulations to him and congratulations to Lyft. Right now, Lyft is offering our listeners a special deal. 3 free rides for up to $10 each, up to a $30 value when you enter promo code Bill Simmons. Download the free Lyft app today. Enter promo code Bill Simmons in the payment section. 3 free rides, up to $10 each. Fortunately, that's not enough free rides for my nephew Kyle. He needs about 300 free rides. I'm interested to see if he doesn't get a car and just relies on ride-sharing app for the rest of his life. I think it'll turn out fine for him. I really do. I think Kyle's going to enter this new world where he, everything is delivered. Maybe he just relies on Postmates and Lyft, and I don't know. I don't know how he finds companionship. Maybe Tinder. Maybe girls just show up at the house. We'll see. I'll let you know what happens, but definitely try out Lyft. And now back to the podcast. You go to the parties.
Yeah.
Go to the party. This party, this should have been like a celebration. You did an awesome job hosting, by the way. I'm not just saying that because I'm your friend.
Thank you.
You were really good. I really enjoyed the show.
The narrative changed.
It just becomes what happened for 4 hours, right?
Yeah, it did. It did. Yeah. Well, I didn't stay out for 4 hours, but yeah, that's pretty much all we talked about the whole time.
And what was the mood?
Well, one other thing that we did discuss is that if it had been Manchester by the Sea, every other year they rotate the lead actor and lead actress as the second to last category. So let's imagine that instead of actress and Emma Stone, it was Casey Affleck in Manchester by the Sea. And let's imagine that Warren Beatty had an envelope that said Manchester by the Sea on it. If that had happened, everyone would have thought Matt Damon won for producer. He would have went up on stage, and then I would have had to go on stage and tell Matt Damon that he didn't win.
And nobody would have believed that.
And we would still be on that stage, right? And like today, many days later,
hours,
the show would still be on.
Yeah.
The only thing less likely to happen, but if Mel Gibson, if somehow Hacksaw Ridge had been announced.
Oh, that would have been crazy.
And if they had to take it from him and give it to
that would have been
Moonlight.
chalked up to karma, though. Definitely.
Yeah. He should be mic'd up at all these things anyway.
He was an asset for you in the crowd.
Yeah,
I mean,
really
he looks like a crazy
it's
person.
funny. I don't even really know because I couldn't see the show as it was happening, and I've not gone back and watched it. The only thing I watched was the envelope thing, so I could kind of give my account of what was happening.
What was it like to? I mean, you've hosted everything from the roast. Which roast was that? Hugh Hefner.
I've hosted a few. I've been
couple roasts. AMAs.
The first roast of Hugh Hefner was a really big one because it was right after 9/11. Yeah.
AMAs.
I hosted the American Music Awards 5 times, I think.
Emmys.
Emmys twice.
What else?
AVN
Awards.
No, never that one. White House Correspondents' Dinner. That was
so.
This
The Oscars, you come out and like the biggest movie stars in the world. Usually you can see the first couple rows because it's bright, right? You can't see everybody.
I can see everybody.
Okay.
It's because it's a TV show, so everything's
And it's all the famous actors we have in the world. They're just all staring at you.
Right.
Like, what's the reaction? Do you even think about it?
That doesn't really affect me because it's weird, but I know almost every one of those people
because they've been on the show. Yeah.
It's you're thinking about the home audience. You're thinking about it's a tricky crowd. And it's a tricky situation because in every other comedy situation, the audience is in darkness. Even on my show, the audience, they're not lit. So they're not worried about laughing at an off-color joke, being caught on camera. People, they examine every second of these broadcasts. I mean, somebody has a puss on their face and everybody assumes they're getting divorced, and
like poor Denzel after the Affleck Award.
Yeah, exactly.
That became a meme the next day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're very conscious of this stuff, and so you've got an audience that's very conscious of not laughing in the wrong places. And sometimes just to be careful, they won't laugh. So you have to really hit them over the head.
And you have a lot of people from different countries. You have a lot of nervous people.
You have a lot of people who clearly haven't seen the movies I'm making jokes about in this particular situation.
Sal and I were talking about that before.
That became very obvious.
I think that's
to
one
me.
thing we underestimate or overestimate, whatever.
I kind of had a feeling that was going to happen. But I made a joke about the movie Moonlight, which I thought was interesting. Everybody a standing ovation every time the movie is mentioned. But the joke was, the happiest ending was in the middle of Moonlight, because there was a, as my wife dubbed it, hand job by the sea, the movie, and the people that got it laughed really hard, but they were in the vast minority.
You knew because you showed me the rough draft, and you knew there was a possibility of just confusion.
Yeah, I
but
did.
not to the level that probably was actually in the theater with that joke.
You know what? I decided it was a great joke, and I didn't care. I figured
I was
people
glad
at
you
home
did it.
Or people in retrospect, if they didn't know, they'd figure it out later.
Yeah,
because it's a great joke, and I was just
I
like,
thought the
hell
more
with it.
egregious example was the Hidden Figures, with the one with the what women could accomplish when they go pee, which was a solid joke. And it's like, come on, this movie made $100 million.
Definitely. That's it. Yeah, that was another one where you could see the people that saw the movie. You could just see them because they were laughing, and then you could tell who didn't. Mm-hmm. It's weird. You get these screeners sent to your house. You're in the Academy. You think you'd watch the movies that people are talking about, but it became obvious that it's like anything else. A lot of people will vote for the people they know or their friends or, people they worked with or their own projects or whatever. And they may not watch their screeners. Those screeners should expire on Oscar night. Somehow they should figure it out because people would watch them if they did.
What was, other than the final envelope, did anything else go wrong that we didn't see?
Oh yeah, there was a complete crazy disaster on the afternoon of the
Oh
broadcast.
yeah, I wanted to talk about that. Should we talk about that now?
Much bigger deal than the envelope.
You could have died.
Scary.
Well, not necessarily me, but I was on stage. I was on stage. We were rehearsing the tour bus bit.
Yep.
And we had stand-ins pretending to be the tourists that we were going to round up. And I stepped off stage, as I did during the tour bus bit, to start giving the tour. And as soon as I stepped off stage, a huge structure, I think it was probably 30 feet tall. I'm not sure exactly how big it was. And a slightly smaller structure just toppled over. And this is a huge wooden structure. And it was like, everybody, the writers were in the back room.
So we couldn't even see. I mean, you couldn't see it either, probably because your back was turned. But we hear voices like, go, and we thought like people were rushing in, like, this is terrorist crap. And like Jane was there, and we're like,
my wife stuffed my daughter under the table.
It was really scary. And then finally they cut to.
Meanwhile, the whole band was in the orchestra pit under this.
Oh my God!
I don't know what
they were terrified.
Erin said that she ran out and she couldn't find you, and she thought you were under the wood. And
well, everything got really quiet for about 30 seconds after the stage toppled over, because I think people were nervous, and also you wanted to hear if anybody was going to cry out from under that, and that was a very tense moment when that thing happened, because someone easily could have been killed. It is a miracle. It really is a miracle that nobody was hurt.
So you were on the stage 2 minutes before it collapsed.
Less than 2 minutes before it collapsed. Yeah.
And I had a parlay with the stage not collapsing at all. Usually golden.
Did Sal get blamed for that?
And by the way, this is day of show, so we didn't have the rehearsal. We didn't
canceled the rehearsal.
We canceled the rest of the rehearsal. We had no rehearsal today. We only rehearsed like the first half of the show.
Mm-hmm. Erin said Erin's one of your EPs for people not listening, or people who don't know that. Erin said it had it gave it like a weird edge because it was so scary for a couple hours after.
Yeah, I think it did. Yeah,
maybe a foreboding edge.
Meanwhile, I was the only one. I was like, "Oh, good, no more rehearsal. I'm gonna go take a nap." I went and laid down for a half an hour.
Did they know what happened? Did they know why it collapsed? Was it the Price Waterhouse guy? Can we blame him for this?
Everything.
The stage has an elevator under it, and for whatever reason, the building wasn't in the slot it was supposed to be in, and when the elevator came up, it toppled it over.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sal, you were preparing for this Oscars for a long time. You've worked with this guy for a long time. Is this the all-time most anal he's ever been about anything?
The most anal?
Yeah. Where would you rank his?
I think
his
so.
2 months before the Oscars compared to the other stuff.
Yeah, no, I think this was, but I wanted to ask you, I never asked you about this. Like, you were told late that you were hosting around Christmas time, right? It was on a Christmas break. Do you think now that it's better that we didn't start in October?
maybe it's one less month of. Actually, no, it was not Christmas break. It was before that,
No,
right?
wasn't it?
No, you're right. Yeah, it was after Christmas.
Yeah, it was late.
Yeah, it was after
late.
Christmas. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think it would be better if they just like ran into my room the night before and said, "Hey, tomorrow you're hosting the Oscars."
Right.
And I didn't have to worry about it leading up because I really wasn't that nervous. Like moments
I
before
could see
the show.
he felt it. Like Friday night, we had the rehearsal, and afterwards, I saw him. Like you should have been exhausted, and you probably were, but you were in a good mood, and you were up, and I think I saw in your eye, you're like, I got this.
The fact that I went to the party, I think, is all you need to know because
Dick's
Baby Doll's dinner, because I wouldn't have gone if I wasn't feeling confident or ready.
Right.
But I did. I just felt like I had good jokes, and I felt like I was pretty much ready to go.
Yeah.
Also, like having done a lot of these, you know, it's you're almost like an athlete. Like you play in the high school championship, you play in the Rose Bowl, then you play in a playoff game.
It's exactly like that.
And it just
really
moves up.
It's exactly like that.
Bigger room,
harder.
but
I think of it more of in the way I think of it like as being a coroner. Your first day on the job, you're horrified by all the gore and dead bodies, and then like 5 years into it, you're like you got your dick in a dead body's ear, and you're shooting your Christmas card.
I was going to say that.
In a way, it's the same thing.
It seemed like a monumental task after the Emmys, but I think it helped that it was after the, we had the muscle memory.
By the way, we haven't talked about, maybe we're going to get to it, where I totally lost the crowd the moment where I was with the OJ joke.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole thing went south. And I'm like, really, like the whole deal flashed before my eyes because the monologue went over great. People loved it. I mean, people were jumping up and down when I walked backstage, and I knew it. I knew it went great. And, you kind of think like that's the main thing. Once that's, even if everything else is mediocre, people will remember your monologue.
Yeah.
Until I get out there and I'm standing out there and we're following a very kind of serious speech. And after the OJ documentary, which, by the way, you should have been thanked for, right?
I did. Well,
I was wondering also if you were going to be thanked for it too, and I was thinking, well, maybe I'll say
ESPN.
something.
I used to work there.
Maybe I'll say a little something. It's your 30 for 30 thing. Whatever. I don't know. So I'm sitting there, and I have a couple of OJ jokes in my pocket, and I don't have them on prompter or anything. They're just in my head, and I think, oh, these are not gonna work at all.
Because he was a double murderer.
Well, no, not because of that. Just because of the tone at that moment. Because the OJ jokes at the Emmys worked very well.
Yeah.
But the tone at that time, it was one of those moments where people knew they were on camera and they knew they had to react in a certain way. And I'm standing in the audience, which makes it even more invasive in a way. The people around me know that they're on camera, so they can't laugh. The only one laughing was Anthony Anderson, who was dying.
He's the best.
And so I make this joke, and nobody laughs. And I'm like,
what was the joke? I don't remember.
I said,
extra slice of bologna.
This is OJ's. Well, I got to that one. I said, this is OJ's second biggest victory ever.
That's right. And nobody laughs. It's just dead.
And then I turn on the crowd and I go, oh, come on, so, whatever.
Right.
Which, because, listen, really? We don't want to offend
halfway
OJ.
Through the Oscars, the crowd turns.
And then they made the bologna joke. Yeah. And the bologna joke, one more slice of bologna for OJ tonight. And that goes over.
That's a great joke.
In no way. And then. And then I find myself in a very deep hole because I've.
Right.
I've put myself in it. And I said, I don't know, I said something to the effect of, I was just basically kind of enacting the review I would get. Kimmel and the crowd, until a very distasteful OJ joke was poorly received.
Their beloved OJ.
And I kind of got them back at that, and people did laugh. And then
many people would have just moved on.
But they held it against me for 2 acts. I really had to do a little. I had to win them back. I needed like 2 more appearances to finally get them back on board.
Dropping the stuff from the roof probably helped too.
That was, it's funny because people are like, oh, you're giving food to the audience. Everybody does it. It's because the audience needs food, or they're terrible, or else they will hate you, and they hate being there, and that's the worst kind of a group of people. And every award show I ever do, I will make sure I don't care if I don't care if 1,000 people say enough already. Every award show I ever do, there will be some kind of food for the audience.
You know, have you watched the whole show? Because
After the
after
show? No.
you made the coffee joke, I forget who the actor was, but you're like, and now here comes the coffee. And they've got this really? I forget who it was. I mean, it was like Casey Affleck, like jerked up and looked up. You're dropping coffee.
That's when you know you've done a lot of bad things, when people think you might actually drop coffee on them at the Oscars.
Yeah. It was realistic to him.
Yeah.
What was your biggest surprise from actually hosting it that you didn't expect?
Well, the envelope was number one.
Well, I mean, other than
Let's see.
just the whole process of the night where you're like, oh,
Nothing really.
Okay.
You know, it's very similar to the Emmys. So
Maybe some of the background stories for the tour bus guests.
Oh yeah, well yeah, when our tour bus, it turned out the guy that was kind of the star of the tour bus had just been released from prison. He'd done 20 years in prison for stealing perfume. This guy.
Yeah.
And he had just gotten out, right? Like 3 or 4 days
Thursday.
before?
He was released on Thursday. He was live on the Oscars on Sunday. And I was wondering why this guy, I was getting annoyed because he was taking so many pictures, I couldn't have a conversation with him.
Yeah.
And I wanted to speak to him, but he was so zeroed in, I realized, oh, this might be the first time he ever held a cell phone.
Yeah.
You know, because
Oh, yeah.
we gave them cell phones before they came into the theater, and we did it in a very tricky way because they didn't know what was going on. We didn't want it, but we... You know, they have a deal with Samsung, so we had to make sure that people weren't waving other brand phones around
Right.
on the broadcast. So they concocted the story like Samsung wanted you to test these phones and say what you thought about them, and so everybody said okay, and we put cases on all the phones, so it looked kind of normal. But this guy got hold of a cell phone and he went nuts. He was just just picture. And yeah, because think of it, the first time you held a cell phone, you went nuts too. You know,
Yeah.
when he went into prison, there were nothing but flip phones. You know, he'd never.
Who was
even
the guy
had a
from the
text.
third Trump debate? The guy with the red sweater who immediately became an
Ken
Ken
American.
Bone.
It felt like there was some Ken Bone potential with Gary from Chicago.
Yeah.
Especially when you could see the green cigarettes hanging out of his pocket.
I didn't even see
I
that.
could tell you were delighted right away.
I was.
You were like, wow, this is the jackpot.
I was. I
I
haven't
could
seen
see him
any
on
of
the
that
show
stuff
the
yet.
next night. Then the envelope thing happens. Then, like, very quietly, 2 days later, it's like, yeah, that guy was in jail for 20 years. Maybe
Yeah.
Not going to have the same Ken Bone.
Well, at least people
Run.
know we didn't set it up, because there
Right.
were people like, "Oh, that was a setup," and like, "No, it wasn't." If
Can
it
I just
was,
say who
That
one
was
of
the
those people
consensus,
are?
yeah.
And I think our Mike and the Mad Dog impression days are over.
why?
Francesa turned on Jimmy, one of the
Oh, no.
very few negative reviews.
Oh, is that right?
Francesa?
Well, for I think he's a Trump guy, and his boy got beat up a little bit, so he was annoyed at that. But and it's such a weird take about how fake the tour bus bit was. Like, they're not giving tours
Oh,
at
that's
8
good.
o'clock at night on Oscar night. First of all, it's a 3-hour difference.
Right.
And the
Right,
tour
it's five-
started
it's
at
5 in the
3.
afternoon.
And yes, they do give tours in mid-afternoon. He's like, I wasn't buying it for a minute. He was going crazy. And then he's like this. He didn't like the candy drop. This pompous hippopotamus did not like the candy
Well,
drop.
maybe
of all
because
people.
none of the candy wound up in his mouth.
Here's Jimmy
couldn't
Kimmel dropping
participate.
candy at the Oscars. Who's he think he is? That's
well,
amazing.
anyway,
yeah,
yeah,
it was
it's
the Trump
disappointing.
stuff, though. He's a Trump
It
guy.
got me mad.
I don't know if we can. I don't know if we can
No.
get past this.
No, I don't think so.
So the
Yeah.
Trump stuff. Let's be honest. Your number one goal for the Oscars, from a creative standpoint, was for Trump to tweet. At
It would
some
have been
point.
great if he
wanted it.
tweeted. You know what happened in rehearsal? We tested the technology to make sure I could tweet back to him if he tweeted at us. And I was just screwing around in rehearsal, and everybody was laughing so hard because I don't know what I wrote in rehearsal. I wrote something really dumb and simple, but everybody was laughing so hard. They're like, "You have to do it anyway. You have to do it anyway." I was like, "All right, I'll do it anyway." So that was really kind of unscripted and just kind of very loose. We decided that was a game time decision there.
And he sat it out though. He didn't take the bait.
He didn't. I'm guessing that he wasn't watching. Is probably what it was.
I think someone got
he
to
was
him in the
watching.
like
I think they took
Sunday
his phone.
morning. 'Cause
You know,
since
there's a-
then he hasn't tweeted anything.
There's a
crazy.
countdown clock I saw online. How long it's been since he attacked someone on Twitter.
Yeah.
And as of this afternoon, it was 3 days
Yeah.
and 1 hour. So, it seems like maybe somebody's.
Give him an offline account to tweet. It's offline.
For real?
Yeah, he can tweet. They said that today. He has an offline account. He can tweet. It doesn't go out to the world.
Why don't I believe anything Tate's saying? Can we hear anything Tate's saying?
No, we can.
You know, let me. One of the things
Tate
about
said-
microphones is you have to speak into them.
That's it. Tate likes to do that once a podcast. Though. That's one of his moves. Tate said they gave him an offline account for the people.
So
listening
he
home.
thinks he's tweeting at people is like you give like a kid a fake cell phone, like a
these
baby a
fake
set of keys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much debate was there with how far to go with the Trump humor and what the lines were and all that stuff?
Because
You have how many people watching?
30 million people, I guess. I don't know, not much. I mean, people, I think they're used to letting the host kind of do what he or she wants. So,
Well, I'm talking about what you wanted. Did you feel like there was a chance you might lose the room if you went too far, or like?
No, I thought there was a chance I might lose the room if I didn't go
too
far enough.
Yeah.
But I just felt like it was just a matter of balance. I didn't want it at any point for people to feel like, oh, all right, we got it, and that mostly depends on the quality of the jokes.
I thought it'd be, if you bet the under, everything's in terms of betting, on politically charged speeches, I think you would have won. Like, I expected more. And especially like even Casey Affleck had a bigger, like
Casey was shocked that I talked to him afterwards.
Really? Like the night before at the Spirit Awards, he had a huge thing, and
He
there was
couldn't
some
believe he
politics
won.
in it.
He was totally unprepared, and
Yeah.
he said he forgot to thank his kids, and he was
Right.
despondent about that. And his brother was crying in the audience, and that really like threw him off because I don't think Ben does a whole lot of crying. And
Right.
and it was I think that was a very spontaneous and totally unprepared speech that he gave.
The gambling odds shifted big time toward Denzel.
Right.
It's like by the time the Oscars started, he was almost a 2-1 favorite. Which
Yeah.
So I never know like what does that mean? It's just people
know, I don't
waiting to
know
make
either.
their Denzel run, or they have inside info. I wasn't as surprised that he won after Lonergan won for his screenplay.
That
made me think like, oh,
I
okay.
wasn't surprised that he won because that was an
He was awesome.
unbelievably fantastic performance. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's a very sad movie, but he was great in that movie. I can't really honestly think of any more natural performances than that one. It never for one moment seemed like acting was going on.
I like the thing he said to Ben at the end too about like you're not heavy. He was kind of he snuck it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was all these moments from the Oscars that I think would have been really played out the next day and dissected, and instead,
If not for
the envelope just
And it's not
destroyed
really
everything.
fair because, they gave out 25 awards. 24 to 25 they got right. But like, you got one wrong and everyone freaks out.
Yeah, Brady
That's an
completes
A+.
24 or 25
Exactly.
passes. That's
Yeah.
a great day for them.
Everyone going crazy about it.
One more quick break from the cousins to talk about our friends at Squarespace. They make it easy to build beautiful websites, whether you're planning to start a business, change careers, or launch a creative project. Now that we are 3 months in to 2017, well, 2 months in, we're in our third month, you should absolutely be tackling your next move with Squarespace. It's widely used by all kinds of people and businesses. Squarespace gives you the ability to create an online platform with which you can make your latest goals into a reality. Whether you need a landing page, a beautiful gallery, a professional blog, or an online store, it's all included in your Squarespace website. It's a unique domain experience. It is fully transparent. It is simple to set up. Add and arrange your content and features with the click of a mouse. Nothing to install, patch, or upgrade ever. And Squarespace's award-winning 24/7 customer support will help you no matter how hard or how easy your problem may be. Start a free trial today at squarespace.com. Use offer code BS to get 10% off your first purchase plus a free domain. Again, that's squarespace.com. Offer code BS. Squarespace. Make your next move. Make your next website. Back to Jimmy and Sal. So what were the next 2 days like?
A lot of emails to respond to, a lot of more well wishes probably than I've received and compliments in my entire life combined.
And you had some heavy hitters, and even personally, you said like in the same minute you got two that, right?
Al Gore called me today.
Wow.
Al Gore.
So weird, right?
Wow.
Yeah. It went well. I think everybody was very happy. The difference I think was the people in the audience enjoyed the show.
You're right.
And typically that is not the case, and what I'm told, and I think we kept just enough stuff happening live in studio for them to really enjoy
It wasn't
the show.
stuffy at all. It wasn't like the that's that's what makes it didn't feel like 3 hours and 39 minutes, maybe just to me, but it wasn't stuffy. It was pretty smooth. I'm gonna give him a good review. It's Simmons, because no one at the Ringer will give him a good review. So I'm gonna do.
I gave him a great review.
I know you did now, but you can't have anyone write anything good about it.
I
the
don't tell
usual.
people what to
Why
write.
did somebody?
No, nothing bad,
No.
but the usual lukewarm. Nothing
No.
great.
Tepid.
No.
Kinda.
What's the nicest thing anyone
Well,
said?
that's
Tell
the thing.
people what to write.
That's the thing. You just
Wesley and Sean Fennison, I raved about him the next day on a podcast.
Everything podcast, sure, but when the writing, you never.
That's the thing. You really can't ever win. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't. It couldn't have gone better than it did, except for the envelope thing, which had nothing to do with me. It literally could not have possibly gone better. And you get people, there are some people that will acknowledge me. You get people like, yeah.
Yeah.
The
but
worst,
why did it have
the
to work
best
for
you
Simmons?
get is not insulted.
I think Simmons is in a tough spot because I do think there's a.
Why? How did that?
Because
How
I
am
think you
above
do.
this?
Well, I think there is a directive like, don't ever write anything bad about Kimmel. But on the other hand, if anyone writes anything
Maybe
good,
that's what makes them resent
it's
me.
a puff piece.
No.
And then you get, you're writing about your friend, so it's tough.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. You're in a
That's
tough
all
spot,
right.
buddy.
It's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
I thought you did a good job. I was proud of you.
Finally.
Well, here's the thing.
But as you told me in the email, you would have told me.
I would have lied.
You would have told me that I
totally
did a
would've
great
lied.
job, even if I.
I totally would have lied. I remember one of the AMAs that we did. I was like, it was all right. I'm going to tell him he did great. But I think what people, one of the things that people have, like my mom said this to me. She's like, I don't know if Jimmy handled the ending very well. I'm like, what did you expect from him? Oh, I just thought he should have taken more control. He's the host. I'm like, Mom, that's insane.
I didn't know what was going on.
He didn't know what to go on. He was sitting in the stands.
Can I tell you honestly? I feel like I've gotten too much credit for how I handled the ending because I really didn't do anything
I don't
other than
know what
jerk
you're-
around at the ending. I mean, I made fun of Warren Beatty twice. I fucked around. I really did. I mean, I guess I apologize, which people seem to like.
That was fun.
But like if a plane just crashed into your window right now.
Yeah.
And then people were filming us, and they're like, I don't know if Sal stood up in time. And then, like, that's kind of what that moment was like.
Yeah, except for in this case, I rescued everyone on board. I was Sully.
That's right.
Warren Beatty's like just holding the envelope like it's the last
Poor
5
Warren
hours
Beatty.
of his life.
He doesn't know what the hell happened.
I know.
They're telling
Faye Dunaway is so much smarter than Warren Beatty. I could see her. She was so far in the back of the stage. She was not even in the Dolby Theater anymore. She was at Dave and Buster's next door. She retreated. I saw her way in the background, just kind of like just blonde hair flashing as she left.
You talk about obituaries and everything. Where does this go in Warren Beatty's?
we talked about this on Monday's pod. I
Yeah.
think it's in the first couple sentences.
that's crazy.
I hope not. Yeah, that would be a tragedy.
I think, see, you're too deep in this.
All the women he fucked, that should be the first. First list, alphabetical order, all the women he fucked, then this.
I think this lives on in a way that you'll see in about 2 months.
Yeah, you're
I think
probably
it's-
right. I mean,
Because like think about when we were growing up, we always heard about the girl the Indian that came up to decline Marlon Brando's Oscar.
yeah, feather
And shit
little
like
feather.
that. Those are like these moments that just haven't gone away.
Yeah.
And this is way bigger than that. So what now? What happens to you now?
I know. I got to find
You did
another
the
award
Emmys
show.
and the Oscars.
What's next? Are there
There's
any
nothing
award-
left.
I have to do the
You
upfront.
did the ESPYs too.
Oh, we
You
forgot to mention you hosted the ESPYs
Yeah.
too. That was
I am?
another award show.
No,
No,
you
you
have.
10
We went
years
through
ago.
that.
Oh yeah, I hosted the ESPYs. That's right. I forgot it. Yeah, I've
That was
hosted
your
a lot of
darkest
them.
award show moment because you had a 10-minute monologue and they edited it down to about 3.5.
Yeah, that was bad. That was the worst because I felt like I really killed at that event, and that audience is great. That's a different audience from the
Well,
Oscars.
that's
for sure.
your audience.
Yeah,
Those
athletes,
are your people.
Big dumb
Yeah,
guys.
athletes.
Those are my guys. But that was a shocking and horrible disappointment.
Yeah,
We
that
were
was bad.
watching it at Huey Lewis's house in Montana.
Yep.
I left for a fishing trip with that behind me. I killed. I was on a high. It was great. I got to Montana. The monologue in no way resembled what I had done.
And no heads up.
And there
No,
was
the no heads up was the issue.
Yeah, well, no, it was all. I mean, they were probably smart to give me a no heads up because I would have went berserk if they gave me a heads up. But the stuff that you wind up keeping, it was so political, the whole deal.
I remember being 95% really upset that they did that and 5% excited that you finally knew what I was going through.
Oh,
Sometimes
really?
working
Oh,
for him. Yeah,
interesting.
it's like 5% of me is like, I'm glad somebody else gets it now.
It was crazy.
what
It
it's
wasn't
like.
even like edited for like oh, this was off color. It was like, we can't make fun of soccer, that kind of thing. You know?
But it was even worse than the mangling because I think you had 5 or 6 jokes that just killed the most, and I
Yeah.
think they took out like 5.
yeah, and
That was what really hurt. Is they
edited
took out the
poorly.
best,
the flow,
the best
they
of the
killed
jokes.
the flow of
Yeah.
everything.
Now it seems like a million years ago.
It was. It was a long time ago.
So now what? Now you're just in the late night wars.
Yeah, no. Now I will.
Now you have to win the late night wars.
Yeah,
That's the next. That's the next
That's
thing.
not going to happen. So.
What do you mean that's not going to happen?
Yeah, maybe I could win the cola wars. I think I'd have a better chance with it.
How do you handle Trump now in the age of President Trump? You did Trump Free Tuesday this week.
Yeah.
Is that going to be a gimmick?
I don't know. Maybe if we, sometimes it's like enough already. And
I think Trump Free Tuesday is brilliant.
yeah.
You must go through the same thing, right? When did your writers tell you they want to all write about Trump, or do
Well,
they?
it's weird because we could run 1,000,000 Trump pieces, but people come to our site to read about sports and pop culture and tech, and they don't want to read 20 angry pieces or 20 pieces the other way. So we got to find
It's hard too
right
because
angles.
every day all the writers, they'll write their jokes, however many jokes they write, and a lot of the jokes are about Donald Trump or the people in his world. And then I get everybody's jokes, and I go through all of them, and I'm like, I got nothing but Donald Trump jokes here to choose from, and it's like
Just gotta read them all. Just do
And
'em.
even on Trump Free Tuesday, a day that I said, don't write there will be 0 mentions of Donald Trump, I got a bunch of Donald Trump jokes. It's like people just can't, it's so oppressive that they can't not write about it.
He's not gonna win. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. It's
So
a
what do you do?
lot.
Like the Congress speech was last night, but that wasn't in your monologue.
Yeah, no, it was Trump Free Tuesday. And I'm glad it wasn't because there wasn't much to
behaved
go on
himself,
there. He
so
just,
right.
he sat there and read.
Oh, did you film?
You know what's funny? He is getting so much credit for not behaving like a maniac last night.
know.
It's like when you take a baby to a restaurant. It's like, you were so good. You were really good.
Right.
And you're going to now get a piece of cake or something. It was really interesting to watch.
Adam Carolla wrote for you for the Oscars?
He did.
How'd that go? You hadn't worked together in a while.
It went great, actually. It was kind of shocking in a way.
Whoa.
Because Adam not only wrote so many jokes, not only invested so much time in it, but actually typed them
Typed them himself?
himself. I mean, he sent me many typed pages of jokes, and I'm going through, and they were great. And I actually was like looking forward to opening them because they were so funny.
He took a typing class at night and gave Jimmy jokes during the day. Crazy.
And they were really, what's funny is you get away from working with Adam every single day.
Yeah.
You forget how funny he
You
is.
kind of forget, he's super funny, but you kind of forget. And he came into the office for a meeting. A lot of the young writers, they don't know him. They don't really, they don't know the Man Show. They're too young. They don't listen to his podcast, so they don't know what's going on. As far as they know, he's like my racist uncle,
Right.
Yeah.
And he comes in
Not
the
wrong.
meeting and he just destroys the meeting.
Yeah.
Everybody's dying laughing. He's kind of holding court the whole time.
Yeah.
And you go like, oh yeah, that's right. Adam is ridiculously funny.
I remember the first year writing, if you got late to the lunch meeting where we all had to pitch, and the only seat was like next to Carolla, falling Carolla was like the death seat.
Oh yeah,
Because Carolla would be funny for 20 minutes. And it was
Right.
like, all right, what do you have? And he'd be like,
With nothing written
know,
down,
yeah,
right?
I know.
Like one word written down.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
Not
he-
even a word. Technically, not even a
Yeah, it
word.
makes
Well,
sense.
he was smart. He would sit. You'd go in order around the room. He'd do no work, but then he would listen to the other pitches and just make them better.
Yeah.
Like Tony mentioned before about how they're changing the speed limit in Nevada. And then he would go on his rant,
Yeah.
and it was.
And then you ruin lunch for everybody.
And then he still blames me
For what?
because I intervened on the Chinese food because when we would get Chinese food, everybody would be incompetent after because of
Right.
the MSG.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that to you, and you used to listen to me back then.
Yeah.
And you were like, you're right. That's a terrible idea. Why are we drugging the writers with Chinese food? We should get healthier.
Probably I just didn't really like the Chinese food.
It might have been bad Chinese food too. James Baby Doll Dixon stories?
Oh yeah. Well, Sal and I have been trying to figure out how much of the show, of the Oscars show, baby doll, who is my agent, actually saw.
You know he didn't go 3 hours and 40 minutes without a cigarette.
No, we know
Where would he have
smoked.
smoked?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, anywhere. He smokes,
Okay.
wherever. But he definitely exited the building to smoke at some point, which means he had to have missed something. Well, I wish he was here so we could have quizzed him and gone through and read him a list of things that happened and then made a couple up and listened to him kind of bullshit his way through it. But, yeah, he was on pretty good behavior because his wife and daughter were there.
But there were people walking by, and his go-to line is, I don't even, this guy with a cane, he looked like he was 90, just trying to make his way through. He was important at some point, and baby's like, hey, Mark, do you remember me? You remember me, right? Which is the most annoying question you can ask
remember
somebody.
me? Yeah,
You
you're just
remember me?
immediately making
I'm
the person
telling you,
feel
you
stupid.
remember me.
I do. I remember
So
you.
go ahead and remember me. He's out of his mind.
He's
He
crazy.
He didn't have like a Denzel Washington.
He didn't force his way into the Vanity Fair party afterwards.
Ah.
Yeah, you're right. He had his family.
He was
so
off
it's
his
like-
game. He really was.
Yeah.
The family's like his kryptonite.
Yeah.
He didn't stay with you?
He didn't stay with me. No. He was disappointingly well behaved.
And you had a pregnant wife as your date?
I did.
Very
yes.
pregnant wife.
Very pregnant.
Looked great in
yeah.
the gown. When is the second child coming?
In a couple months.
So that'll be your next big project.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Not sleeping.
Yeah. I know we sleep. I sleep through everything. As long as that's the great thing about breastfeeding. We can't do it.
It's true.
It's like, well, what am I going to do? I would do. I always say to Molly, I would have the baby for you if I could.
Jimmy's got a fishing trip planned 3 hours before the due date. I think. He's going to be fine.
Did we cover everything?
I think so, right?
Let's see.
I still
Sal
can't
lost
believe-
a lot of money.
When is this going to end?
What, you
I
losing
just
a lot of
can't-
money?
No,
Wow, never.
Did you lose on the Cubs?
No, I somehow stayed
Somehow
away
you
from
stayed
that.
away. Somehow you didn't
Yeah.
have the Indians.
Yeah. And we had other stupid things. The Lions not to make the playoffs. There's no
I know, but when you talk about
I know.
3-1 Cavs,
Yeah.
Patriots coming back from 25 down, Hillary
Clinton.
losing to Trump,
Right.
and then the envelope switch, and you're on the wrong side of all four of
Yeah.
those.
We shouldn't
I don't
even
know.
be in the same room as you. It's
in trouble.
dangerous. I feel like I should have a
You're
helmet
right.
on
that
right
plane Simmons talked about coming through is on its way.
And you had Pats Rams you lost on.
That was years ago. This is
I know. I'm
millions
trying to
ago.
think of what some of the other
Oh,
great
there's a
upsets.
ton. Yeah. There's,
now. Oh yeah.
We really need to you need to make a list, and we just need to rattle
Yeah,
it
your
off.
worst
No one
losses.
will believe it, like-
Where would this one rank in your worst? Super
This
Bowl
has
had
to
to
be
be
one.
worse, right?
No, to think you won and then it gets taken away.
I
has
had a
to be-
college football game. This got me on the bad streak this year. I had, this is boring, but Oklahoma State was winning by 4 with 4 seconds left, and they had the ball over Central Michigan. Now, you'll never get that scenario again. You're winning by 4 with the ball and 4 seconds left, and they let the clock expire. I can't even say it. I get so crazy. And they throw it out of bounds, and they call it grounding, which gives the defense one more play. Sure enough, Hail Mary the other way, and it wins.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, Scott Van Pelt and ESPN, they talk about bad beats, but they don't bet
Live them.
Yes,
Yeah.
they don't go through it.
And they don't
like I
get
do.
beat by them.
Right.
I think probably the Trump Clinton one is the worst one because we stared at it and tried to
Yeah.
figure out ways to go against it forever. And
Yeah, and I had the States
the
parlay
Billy
too.
Bush thing happened. We were like, we don't need to go against this now.
Yeah.
It's done. Last thing, it's Food Week on the Ringer. And we
Oh.
did this top 50 fast food list,
Okay.
which was voted on by the entire staff, which includes a
Are
lot
these
of
chains or regional chains?
There was a couple regional chains that climbed in, but for the most part, it was like the In-N-Out Burger and all that stuff.
Right.
The one that won the vote was the Chick-fil-A waffle fries,
Oh, interesting.
which won over the chicken sandwich,
It's out of
and it's
any
caused a
item,
lot
huh?
of tension in the office.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even name those the top fries.
So what are your top fries?
Nathan's. There we go.
Nathan's. So Nathan's hot dog didn't make the list either.
It's a cup of fries.
The salt is perfect, and the
And
cringe.
there's a red fork. It's like a
Yeah.
spear that you put on it, and when they come out, they spring out. They almost spring out of the cup.
and you get the little salt packet, and you have to use it, and it's great. And the catch
Oh,
it out.
yeah.
It's
How about best burger?
and go in and out for
Fast food, yeah, it's got to. I mean,
because Steak Shack's involved. Like you can
Steak or Shake
Shake Shack.
Shack.
All those.
the
you
Shake
can go.
Shack chicken
Five Guys.
sandwich, I think, is better than their hamburger. But In-N-Out's hamburger is really good.
You were an Arby's guy for a long time.
Yeah, but I don't eat there anymore. I used to eat 2 Arby's sandwiches pretty much every day.
When we worked at Ben Stein's Money.
Yeah,
Seriously?
every day. Yeah.
Arby's was only 32 on the list, and Joe House was really upset about that.
I had my 30th birthday was catered by Arby's.
Oh, right.
I'm still
It's the
support
best
Arby's.
sauce. The Arby's sauce is
The barbecue
best
sauce.
of all the sauce. It's tangy. It's sweet. It's,
How about chicken sandwich?
I like the Shake Shack chicken sandwich.
More than the Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, it's
do you think?
meatier.
You have
I
a
don't-
Chick-fil-A
I,
very close to this office.
Yeah, and a
I
Shake
haven't
Shack.
had the Shake Shack chicken sandwich. I guess I have to.
It's really good.
try it. Is it?
Yeah, good stuff.
It doesn't really compare to like In-N-Out, but I could eat 100 White Castle hamburgers right now.
Yeah, that didn't make the list either.
It's so good.
I still think McDonald's French fries are right up there too.
So
Oh, by the way, In-N-Out's French fries are excellent.
They're good.
they have what 12-minute shelf life though.
Because they take a potato in front of you
Right.
and they cut it and they throw it in the deep fryer, and that doesn't happen at other places.
I've rekindled my love for In-N-Out.
Yeah.
Because I had a great double Saturday, and it got me the melted
On
cheese.
Food
really won
Week,
me
you're
back.
talking about fast food, huh?
No, it was just one of the things.
I see.
We have a whole bunch of stuff. We had a whole. I'll send it to you. A whole
How about
piece
this?
the meatless burger that would really hurt your feelings. Somebody trying to perfect the vegan.
I had
burger.
that. I tried it.
Yeah.
It's
They're-
okay.
They put there's a way to put blood in it so it bleeds like a burger.
Yeah. I had one of those, and it was it was okay, but it didn't really taste like a hamburger.
McDonald's, Coca-Cola.
I like Wendy's Coca-Cola
Really?
best of all. And
What is it? Just because their machines are
no,
cut-
yeah, they
McDonald's
use
is pretty good. Though.
they use copper tubing in their machines. Someone explained to me once.
House had a whole thing about how he thought the egg McMuffin is the most important fast food item ever created.
Really?
Because it like created the breakfast sandwich. It
The
created the
genre?
breakfast industry, and he's like, McDonald's had to go to the all-day breakfast menu. That's how good the egg
Because of it.
McMuffin is. There's never been anything that compared to it. Every kid has eaten a million of them. How does that not win? Pretty good case.
Yeah, it's good, but still, the McDonald's hamburger's got to be the most important item in fast food history. Yes?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
It's certainly not one of my favorites, though.
No, but it's the original.
Yeah. All right.
I've had bad onion rings too. Burger King doesn't get enough credit for their onion rings.
Do you want to tell Jimmy about your parlay in round 1 of the Vermont tournament today? Sal had the Vermont Catamounts in a parlay tonight.
That's right.
So
I'm
just
afraid to
if
even
you're
look.
worried about that, he's not gambling
You know
enough.
what? I'm not going to check till tomorrow.
The Vermont Catamounts?
Yeah. They were winning 41-16.
This
I'm
sounds
not
like
even
the
gonna check.
beginning of a movie where someone hit rock bottom. I had the Vermont Catamounts.
He's after the Oscars. There's no mountains left to climb for him.
Exactly. There's no counter mountains.
His wife
left.
got shown during the telecast. I mean, it's like, where else do you go to this?
That's
That
right.
was the weirdest part of the Oscars, was seeing my parents
Yeah.
and kids on camera in the audience. When you're hosting something, you're in the middle of it, but when you're watching the monitor and you're like, oh my God, there's my parents. It's a very strange thing.
It was our camera guy. A lot of our camera guys worked the Oscars.
Yeah, right.
Jimmy Kimmel, Cousin Sal, thank you. Thanks for making
We
the
covered
time.
a lot. Thanks
I'm
for coming.
glad you were able to finally tell your story.
Yeah, finally. It's out
Thank you,
there.
Bill. And I'm glad we finally got a ringer-related compliment on the That was nice. Took a lot of guts.
Is that Ringer with a W?
That's it for the podcast. Thanks so much to SeatGeek. Download the SeatGeek app today or go right to SeatGeek.com. Thanks so much for Lyft. Don't forget, 3 free rides for up to a $30 value if you go to Lyft and enter Bill Simmons in the payment code. And thanks to Squarespace.com. Start your free trial today. Offer code BS. Don't forget to download the new Masked Man podcast on his own feed that you could subscribe to. The Masked Man podcast, Ringer NFL show, Ringer NBA show, Teed Up. All our podcasts are humming. And most important, it's Food Week on the Ringer. If you haven't checked out some of the content, it is fantastic. Written podcasts, videos, you name it. Who doesn't love food? Who doesn't have an opinion on food? Go check that out. We are going to be back later this week with another podcast. And it's going to be an athlete that you've heard of. And we also might have a coach that you've heard of. We might team them into one podcast potentially, or we might just save them for and cut them up into 2 different podcasts. But that's coming up. The BS podcast. Thanks to Tate Frazier. Thanks for driving 1.5 miles to Jimmy's office with me. We got a picture. It was great. We didn't get to go to Chick-fil-A. Too bad. Oh well. Back later this week on the BS podcast.